Were you explicitly approached by ownership or anyone in the front office to tank and that you would be incentivized for it?
The Browns have threatened former head coach Hue Jackson over his tanking allegations. We know this all started with the Brian Flores lawsuit. In Brian Flores' lawsuit, where he alleged racial discrimination in the NFL's head coach hiring practices, he also alleged that the Miami Dolphins owner Stephen Ross offered to pay him $100,000 a game to lose. We know this caused quite a stir on social media. Hue Jackson encouraged Brian Flores on Twitter when he saw this news, and also claimed that he has been paid to lose games in his tenure with the Browns. I stand with Brian Flores. I can back up every word I'm saying. If you want NFL content on the latest news, stories, and rumors, make sure you subscribe to this channel and like this video. It really helps me out. My next 50 subscribers will have a shout out in the credits of my next video on this channel. Make sure your subscriptions are public. Most of us know that Hue Jackson suggested he was paid extra for losses as the Browns head coach in response to the Brian Flores lawsuit. It's crazy how this all developed on Twitter. That's why you gotta watch what you do on social media, or you might have your former employer come after you, aka the Browns owner, Jimmy Haslam. So a fan roasted Hue Jackson on the tanking allegations on Twitter, and it triggered Hue Jackson so much that he ended up responding to this fan. The fan said Jimmy Haslam wasn't offering $100K per loss, or Hue Jackson would be on the Forbes list. This fan responded to an original tweet by Hue Jackson where he said Jimmy Haslam was happy while they were losing. And Hue Jackson's response to this guy was crazy. He told him, "Trust me, it was a good number." Hue Jackson chose to double down on the tanking allegations. Hue Jackson went 1 for 31 over his first 2 seasons with the Browns and was fired after a 2-5-1 start in 2018. The executive of Hue Jackson's foundation, Kimberly Demert, also said she had records that would support Flores' case, and wrote that Jackson and team executive Sashi Brown, Paul DePodesta, and Andrew Berry, who is now the team's general manager, were paid bonus money to tank in 2016 and 17, and Hue Jackson replied by saying he could back up every word that he is saying. He also added later, "It won't stay hidden much longer. It can't. What's crazy is I tried to tell you all, yet you didn't want to listen because of all the losing involved." So Hue Jackson, according to his own words on Twitter, says he's been making these tanking allegations for a long time.
Look, I've taken this to the National Football League. When I understood what was going on, I immediately called the National Football League and I talked to Roger Goodell about what I thought was going on. So this is not new.
So the NFL decided to open an investigation into the Cleveland Browns following the allegations made by head coach Hue Jackson. What's crazy about these investigations is they are conducted by the NFL and the commissioner Roger Goodell, who is paid by the owners. So literally Goodell is doing the investigation on his boss, which makes a lot of sense because the NFL ruled that Hue Jackson's allegations against the Browns are not substantiated according to their investigation. The independent review was by Mary Jo White. Mary Jo White also did the independent review on Dan Snyder and the Washington Commanders. So we know she was going to come up with absolutely nothing. She is basically in-house counsel for the NFL, basically employed by Roger Goodell, who was employed by the Cleveland Browns, and all 31 other owners in the NFL. And that brings us to today, where the Browns, through outside counsel, told Hue Jackson to zip it over tanking allegations. In a letter, the Browns said that Hue Jackson is trying to opportunistically wedge his personal frustration with his tenure as the Browns head coach into an important dialogue about opportunities for African Americans in leadership positions in the NFL. The letter also warns Hue Jackson that any claim by you or others on your behalf that the Browns either wanted to lose or paid you to lose is defamation for which you are liable. The letter goes on to warn Jackson that the Browns reserve all rights to seek relief against you. Apparently, Hue Jackson signed a release in 2018 in which he would not discuss any of the internal affairs with the Browns. So they are trying to quiet Hue Jackson. But are his claims legit? What are actually his claims about the Browns and how they paid him to tank?
It was a 4-year plan that was crafted. I think any coach would kind of cringe at if he saw it because it talked about things that had nothing to do with winning. Being the youngest team, having so many draft picks, picks. None of those things are what lead to winning. Teams that win don't have a lot of draft picks.
Mostly, he has said that there are incentives to tank, incentives to keep the roster young rather than have veterans on the roster who could help you compete for a championship. They also had a bonus for not spending money in free agency, so that money would carry over to future years. He also claims that the incentives for winning only kicked in 2018, and prior to that, there were no incentives for winning. But like we said earlier, there were incentives for having a young roster and not spending money in free agency. Hopefully one day we'll learn the truth about this story. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you ring the bell to get notifications. Find out when I'm dropping another video. Obviously subscribe, and the next 50 subscribers will have a shout out on my next video in the credits. My name is WiFiWillie. Peace out and have a good one.